In this section of notes, we're going to be looking at Sub-Saharan Africa today and living in this region. We're going to kind of identify the negative aspects of it, and then I promise I'll kind of cheer you up a little bit by ending on a positive note. But it is important for us to kind of reflect on what's going on in Sub-Saharan Africa today and apply that to some of the other previous lessons and kind of understand why these things are occurring. Living in Sub-Saharan Africa today. First thing I want to look at is agriculture. Farming is the main economic activity. More than 2/3 of the people in Sub-Saharan Africa are involved in some type of agriculture. Women, for example, are engaged in subsistence farming more than anything else, raising enough food for their family to survive. Most farmers in general are also engaged in subsistence farming, but many foreign commercial farming industries are trying to develop Sub-Saharan Africa and develop this region because the soil is extremely fertile and it, for the most part, receives an abundance of rain. But this commercial farming takeover has not occurred just yet. You can see by the map here that the prediction is that farming will actually decrease in much of these areas, and a lot of that has to do with desertification, which we'll get to in here in just a little bit. Many commercial farmers in this region grow what is known as cash crops, which are crops to be grown for profit. Then your next three subsections we're going to talk about on the same slide. Number 2, logging and fishing. 25% of this region is covered in forests. The Congo River Basin is especially important for the forestry industry because of its location in Sub-Saharan Africa. And because of its location, it's located along the tropical regions, and you have tropical rainforest vegetation zone, which is good for the lumber industry. The lumber industry is a small output economically, but it is an important one. Commercial fishing is also a small portion of the economy, especially with the fact that you have so much water availability that people can use. Number 3, mining. It's a very difficult process, but it's very prosperous. Gold mining takes place in this region of Sub-Saharan Africa more than any other type of mining, but judging by your resources here, you can see that there's an abundance of others that you can go out and get. The extremely narrow seams of the valuable minerals are located deep in the earth, making it very dangerous for the workers, but the workers need the money to support their families, and so they put themselves in danger in these dangerous type of economic activity. The movie Blood Diamonds is kind of a good example of the resources that are available in this region. And again, going back to your history lesson, the availability of the resources has led to the exploitation of this region by a lot of other people. Number 4, industrialization. Despite an abundance of resources, the region lacks cheap energy, capital, and infrastructure. Resources such as trained workers, facilities, and equipment to develop industrialization. So despite having an abundance of raw materials, because of the lack of infrastructure, you don't have a huge industrial sector in Sub-Saharan Africa. Today, many countries receive foreign loans to industrialize their zones. The lack of skilled workers reflects the low educational systems of the region, which again go back a lot with the colonization of the area, but also with the corrupt governments in place. They don't focus a whole lot of time, energy, money on the educational system. Cheap energy could come from hydroelectric power, but again, they don't have that capability just yet. I do have a couple of maps here that I want to show you, the one on the right and the one on the bottom left, that reflect the infrastructure. It's not that it's non-existent, just as a region as a whole, it's not the best. The area shows you, first off, shows you where things are located, where they might want to get them out of the ground. These solid lines are either oil pipelines, oil and gas pipelines if they're greenish colored, or the electric power lines if they're black. And as a region as a whole, it's not the best. But things are improving. You can see these transportation systems that are developing and the infrastructure that's developing around these raw materials to get them out of the ground and then ship them somewhere. Picture in the bottom left shows you trans-African highways. Just because it says highways doesn't mean it's paved highways. Again, this looks helpful, but again, this is the entire region as a whole. It's not the best infrastructure that you'll see in the world today. A common theme of this area is desertification. Environmental change has resulted from increasing population pressures and overgrazing. In addition to climate changes, people are negatively affecting the environment in Sub-Saharan Africa. In many cases, people are nomadic herders, and they are overgrazing these lands, so much so that the animals are eating the plants which would normally hold the soil together, and then when you don't get a lot of rain and you don't have the soil held together, it becomes even more dry. So essentially, if this area was focusing more on industry, and if they had infrastructure, then desertification would not be going on because a lot of the things that's causing it wouldn't be taking place. Picture on the left shows you the risk of desertification. These areas in the Sahel are at an extreme risk. You've also got areas around the Kalahari Desert and the eastern coast that are an extreme risk of desertification. And then those areas along your equator, low risk. And then to end this unit of study, I want to look at a case study of Sudan. I've got a picture there in the background of where Sudan is located. After a North-South civil war in Sudan, South Sudan formed as a separate nation in 2011 after a majority of people living there voted for independence. And I've got some pictures here of this independence movement, but I wanted to end this unit of study on a positive note, showing that success can happen. This region can get out of the oppression and corruption that it's been under for basically ever, and people are taking steps in the right direction. It's just going to take time. That concludes this section of notes. Hopefully, although a lot of the recurring themes have been negative, hopefully you see that there can be positives come out of Sub-Saharan Africa and steps in the right direction are being taken. And in fact, agriculture could be developed more in this region, commercial agriculture that is, because of the fertile land and the rainfall that some of these areas do gain. And if that does increase, that would be an easy way for these countries to become more developed. But right now, a lot of them are stuck in the less developed or newly industrialized world.